Growing strong seedlings isn't just luck, it's a skill that anyone can learn. And after years of growing many thousands of plants, I've learned exactly what it takes to get perfect seedlings every time. In this video, I'll show you how to tell when it's time to move seedlings on into new pots, pick the perfect potting mix, and handle seedlings so they don't snap. Let's get started with these seedlings. I follow these 5 key steps to get them to this point. Get it wrong and your plants may never recover from a poor start. Let's make sure that doesn't happen. So let's see what's first up. I'm so excited. One of the first problems that first-time gardeners come up against is knowing exactly when to transfer their seedlings into their own plugs or pots, a process known as pricking out. Now, if you leave seedlings too long, they become increasingly tangled, making it difficult to separate them without potentially damaging them. Furthermore, overcrowded seedlings can get drawn and leggy, which means they won't really thrive, and that can have knock-on effects right down the line. And I've got a couple of pots for us to work with today, some summer cabbage seedlings and these a bit more advanced chili pepper seedlings. They both need pricking out, so let's get on and do that, and we'll be covering seed sowing in a bit. We're going to start with the cabbages, and I'm going to get them out of their pot carefully by kind of jumping them out like this. By moving them on the sides like this, what I'm doing is I'm not kind of landing the potting mix on top of them, which would snap the very delicate stem. And with them all out like this, I can now just carefully tease them apart like this using a little stick or something like a chopstick. Now, I like to work in little batches. That way the seedlings aren't exposed to the air too long, which would potentially dry out the roots and cause them to die. In this cooler weather we've got at the moment, absolutely no problem, but in the heat of summer, that is quite important. Okay, we've got a nice little lineup of seeds, so now to get them pricked out. And I do each one in turn, make a little hole with my stick like that, and then holding the seedling by the leaves, just guide it down with the stick and then firm in around it like that. Nice and easy, there we go. Now, it's really important to handle the seedlings by their leaves. The stems here are where all the nutrients and water are taken up. If you damage the stem, then well, it's curtains for the seedling. If you damage the leaf, it'll probably recover. Now, you'll notice that these seedlings are incredibly young. They've just got their little seedling leaves, and that's a good reason for that. The roots are much smaller at this point, so I can just glide them into place, often without even using the stick to guide them in. There we are. Now, they will quickly settle down like this. Young seedlings are very adaptable, and they'll soon perk back up and keep growing away strongly. Look at this one here, just one straight root and barely germinated, but it's still good to go. And dangle it down and it goes straight away. This is just so satisfying. This is what I really love about gardening, these early stages when there's so much promise and excitement to still look forward to. Next up are these chili peppers, and you'll notice they are a lot bigger than our cabbages. However, they've got quite a bit of space between them, so they're okay, but they really do need to be pricked out. Ideally, these are also chili peppers. I'd prick them out at this stage, nice and young, but we can work with these. But let me show you these here. These are lettuces. These could also be pricked out now, but there are still little seedlings popping up and germinating, so I'll leave this a couple of days until all of the seedlings are up before working with them. For bigger seedlings, it's exactly the same as before. Just eke them out on their side like that, and then shake them like that to gently separate apart the seedlings, always handing them by their leaves. There we are. Now, as these are considerably bigger, I'm just going to put them straight into pots rather than plug trays. And I'm using using my finger as the dibber like that. And they go down just beautifully like that because they're nicely anchored with that potting mix. So there we are, let's get another one. These seedlings have got much thicker, more resilient stems, but I am still erring on the side of caution and always handling by the leaves. With everything pricked out, I can now give them a water to get them on their way. Now sometimes seedlings can look a bit bedraggled and sorry for themselves when you've watered them, but they very quickly perk up. Now the cool season cabbages can stay out here, especially now that light levels are improving and we're coming towards the end of winter. This is an unheated greenhouse and they'll be just fine. The chili peppers, on the other hand, are a warm season crop and really do need it nice and toasty. So I'm going to bring them back indoors, inside, and they can come back out here later on in spring. I'm going to take a step back now to show you what I sow into. Now, why do I sow some things into pots like this and then prick them out, and some things directly into plug trays like this? Well, there's a lot of reasons for sowing into pots and going through that pricking out stage. I germinate a lot of things indoors just to get them started, and space under grow lights or on a narrow windowsill is at a premium. So this is really just a space-saving measure at this very early stage. Sowing into pots also means that when I come to prick them out, like I've done with these ones earlier, I can get exactly one seedling to each plug here. So there's no thinning out needed and no seedlings go to waste. But most of my seeds are usually sown into plug trays. Not only does this save the process of pricking out, it's also ideal for those seeds that are multi-sown, and that's where a pinch of seeds is sown and then the seedlings grown on as they are and planted out as a cluster. Now, many seedlings can be grown on as little multiple clusters like this. So we've got the likes of radishes, bulbing and spring onions like these guys here just about to come up, spinach, beets or beetroots, all sorts of wonderful vegetables can be multi-sown, and this is a great way of saving a bit of time without compromising on the final harvest. Both seeds and young seedlings need good, free-draining potting mix to really thrive. Now, the potting mix doesn't have to be especially fertile. What is important is that it does drain through properly, because we want the potting mix to hold on to moisture but not be sopping wet, which could cause things to rot. I'm going to show you how to make your own seed starting mix, but first let me show you this. This is just an all-purpose potting mix, which is what I usually use for almost all of my sowings. I just push it through a screen or sieve here first of all to leave a finer texture, which is a lot better for seeds. Now, I tend to avoid purpose-sold seed starting mixes because they are just so much more expensive. This stuff works just fine. Now, my seed starting mix uses just 3 ingredients. This stuff, which is coconut fibre or coir. This actually comes from coconut husks and is essentially a byproduct of the industry. Then there is some lovely perlite here, nice and light for extra drainage, and a little bit of vermiculite, which will help to hold on to just enough moisture to help our seedlings really thrive. So first up in our recipe is the coconut fibre, and I'm going to use 7 parts by volume for this. And because it's got lots of kind of hairy strands in it, I'm going to pass it all through a screen here to kind of get rid of those longer bits. Makes it easier to work with. So I've got 7 parts coconut fibre and then it's 2 parts perlite. But before I handle that, I'm going to put on the mask because it does blow out a lot of fine materials. So just to keep me safe. 2 parts perlite and then just 1 part vermiculite. And now mix it all up. Oh, there we are. Like I said, any all-purpose or multi-purpose potting mix would be fine, but this is kind of like a cheat code on really good seed starting mix. It saves a lot on stuff you'd buy in the shops, and this will give us an absolutely perfect environment for our seeds and seedlings. So let's fill the plug tray with our mix here and get sowing. But let me show you these plugs here because they're quite small, but that's absolutely fine, especially as most crops won't be in here for long. They'll just be grown in here and then planted out. And if I flip it over, you can see the holes in the bottom are really quite big. Now that's going to help with drainage dramatically. It'll stop our seedlings kind of wallowing in wet and make sure they're never kind of just sort of sodden in there. Now I'm using the far end of this tray here, and I'm going to be sowing some leeks. Just pushing it down a bit, and then I'm going to sow about 5 seeds per plug, and these will be grown on exactly as they are in this kind of multi-sowing way. And then just a light covering over. I'm also going to sow some peas. Now I could probably get away with using smaller plug tray sizes like this, but as the seeds are a bit bigger, I'm going to use the kind of next stage up, which is this one here. And this time I'm going to be sowing 3 seeds per plug. And if you'd like an idea for other vegetables for multi-sowing like this, check out this table. Getting watering wrong is one of the main reasons seedlings fail, but it's easy to get right, I promise. When we water, we want to avoid blasting out the potting mix, so to do that, we've got 2 options. The first is to simply use a watering can fitted with a rose, a fine rose ideally for seedlings, but then importantly, get it flowing before you start moving it quickly over your seedlings and then move it out quickly. That way you're not getting the initial blast of water as it comes out from the rose. Now the other method, which I have to admit I rather enjoy, is the pump action hand sprayer. It's a mister that's primed like that, and then you simply spray it back and forth. But look, it's a really fine mist, so that's not going to disturb the potting mix at all. Consistent moisture is a must, while avoiding sopping wet seedlings, of course. And this is where a free draining mix like the one we're using today really comes into its own. It reduces the chance of that happening and also greatly reduces the risk of fungal diseases like damping off, tearing through your seedlings. Check seedlings every few days, and if the container feels a bit light, get on and give everything a good water. If it still feels a little bit weighty in the hand when you pick it up, then it's probably got enough moisture and you can leave it to another day. Now sometimes the potting mix can look dry on top, kind of like this one here, but when you pick it up it's still quite heavy, so it's only dry on the very surface. So always pick it up to get a good gauge of how much moisture is in there. It's a bit of an art, but with practice you'll get a good feel for whether something needs watering or not. Oh, let's see. Low light levels are often one of the biggest pitfalls for seedlings started off early in the season, especially in a less than sunny climate like mine, although today we're in luck. Poor light levels can lead to kind of long drawn seedlings rather than the short and stocky ones that we're after. For this reason, sometimes the simplest approach is just to delay sowing until light levels have improved. For me, in my area, that's usually around late winter or February. Most seedlings will need plenty of light from the moment they are up. Now, if your light levels just don't cut it, well, another solution is to use a grow light, kept on for at least 12 hours to really power on the growth of your seedlings. This makes all the difference in the depths of winter, and these are what I use for my early starts of peppers and chili peppers. Right then, shall we find out what number 5 is? Stagnant air can be a killer for seedlings because it gives both pests and diseases like damping off the opportunity to settle down and do their worst. For this reason, when it isn't especially cold outside, I like to open up the greenhouse door and the windows as well. This way the air can be circulating around and it can begin to toughen up my seedlings a bit. You could also open up cold frames or just put seedlings outside for a little while on warmer days. Overcrowded seedlings won't have enough airflow either, so thin out or prick out seedlings promptly. We want to do all we can to avoid those ideal breeding conditions for diseases. Inspect seedlings regularly every couple of days or so to check for any problems, and act quickly if you do spot anything like pests, for example aphids or little fungus gnats that can then be nipped in the bud promptly. Then as planting time nears, help seedlings and young plants acclimatise to the outdoors by leaving them out for increasingly longer spells. Now a gentle breeze or gently running your hands over seedlings will help to toughen them up in anticipation of planting. Though to be honest, in my airy, unheated greenhouse, this isn't really necessary for cool season crops. Follow these 5 key steps and you'll find it hard not to raise fantastic seedlings every time. And with all those seedlings, make sure you are subscribed so you know what to do with them all as we cover many more pro tips over the coming weeks. There, I promised you that perfect seedlings were possible. I hope you're excited for the coming growing season. I will catch you next time.